Do I refresh it now?
Welcome to this week's Wednesday night Ceilidh here at Ceilidh. We're in for a great one tonight. Two things to note before we get started. The bathrooms are just out the back door there to the left. And we got Barbie McRae in the back there. Yeah. And she can hook you up with any drinks and oat cakes and her famous oat cakes. So feel free to visit her in the back there. And yeah, so my name is Ben Smith, and it's great to be here today. And I've been living in Cape Breton for a few years now, but I actually spent most of my childhood growing up in the Caribbean on an island called Curacao. And it's great to be back in Cape Breton. I have lots of family around here, so it's nice to be back. And my grandparents are here, which is nice. And yeah. And I see a few familiar faces. Morgan Tony, the award-winning fiddler and singer. Yeah. And some nice familiar faces from today's demonstration in the hall, so it's good to see everyone. And so we're going to get started here. It's going to be a great summer at the Gaelic College. There's lots going on. We got a bunch of youth coming in July, and then in August there'll be adult sessions, and we'll just get right into the music here. So we're going to start off with Melody and Derrick Cameron. And we'll have Andrea Beaton on the piano too. And they're all from Mabu. And Derrick and Melody plays the fiddle, Derrick on the guitar. And Melody's also a great step dancer. And it's great to have them here. And then Andrea Beaton is also a wonderful fiddle player, composer, piano player. So lots of talent here today. So we'll welcome them to the stage. Thanks.
There we go. How's everyone? Yeah, nice to see a good crowd here. Yes, yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're happy to be here joining you this evening. I'm very happy Andrea could do this too. This is all kind of short notice. We got a call short notice, and Andrea got a call short notice. And yeah, so we're quite happy with all of that. We're just going to jump into some tunes in G. Is that the plan?
Yeah, play it by ear.
Yeah, it's a little bit of winging it going on up here. I gotta say, we don't get to play with Andrea on the piano that much. It's really nice to play with Andrea on piano. It sounded great.
You tell a story, Derrick.
Tell a story. Yeah, she doesn't ask me to talk at home. What are we gonna do next? I can tell them what we're gonna do next.
Play some jigs.
Jigs. Okay. All right. A jigs. Little medley of jigs in A for you. Sure. We should do something to show our sensitive side. Something slow. Something slow.
I didn't think you were that sensitive.
Sometimes I am. I'm thinking Saltwater Fan or Maggie West.
What did you call it? Saltwater brand. That's what I thought you said. Yeah.
Do you know that one?
Maybe.
I can do the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay.
I'll listen for you.
Yeah, we didn't rehearse. Well, me and Melody are like about as rehearsed as we can get, I guess. We're, what are we, 31 years this year, right? I had to check, yeah.
God bless my mother. She said, it's a long time to be with the same man.
People picture us at home playing the fiddle and the guitar, and we're like, yeah, that's right. Anyway, we don't rehearse at home as much as you think. This is a tune Phil Cunningham made, right? Yeah, Phil Cunningham from Scotland. Apparently, it was made for a friend that didn't like rough water. Flatwater Fran. Here's Flatwater Fran.
Do you have a friend?
Yeah. That's what I said.
I agree with you, but you're wrong. But you're wrong. You knew how many times a day I quit Howie.
guess we'll finish off with one more medley of tunes, whatever melody. Do you know what we're doing? It's going to work out. Yeah. So big thank you to the Gaelic College for having us. And thank you for Andrea for joining us on short notice. All right.
Wasn't that great? Give another hand for Yeah. Andrea, Beaton, Melanie, and Derrick Cameron. That was awesome. So next we'll have Cameron McNeel come up here. He's a great piper. He's the duty piper here at the Gaelic College. So he's the first one people see when they come here, and lots of great pipe tunes that are played out front at the Gaelic College. And he's also a university student at Beaton, which is run by the Gaelic College. It's a university program that's offered in partnership with Cape Breton University and the Gaelic College. And it's a great little tight-knit community in Mabu, and you can gain university credit for studying all about the culture. So it's really, if you're ever interested, maybe Ryan, he's on the live stream, he can put the link, beingmabu.ca. And so yeah, we'll have Cameron McNeel come up here and give a hand for him. It's great pipes. Oh yeah, and he's joined by Andrea and Derrick. Yeah.
Probably going to need a little more running.
Yeah.
Just give me a minute.
Go ahead. I'll so you
Yeah, so yeah, I'm the duty piper here, and I was trying to listen to what Ben said, but I couldn't really kind of zoned out. Yeah, I go to Beaton, so that's really good. If anyone's ever interested in university in a small community and to do with Gaelic and all the culture, it's great. Yeah, I'm just going into my third year there.
Do you speak the Gaelic?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we'll just get into it with some A jigs, I think.
Am I kind of close to where you are there?
It should be pretty.
Oh, it's F. Oh, God. Okay. I'm almost there.
Are you there, Andrea? We're transposing.
I don't know if I'm here or there or where I am, but anyway. Let's try that. I'm in normal now. Okay, let's try this.
How loud are you on this? I'm going to hear you again.
started there with one of Andrew's tunes, Ryan Maybe's jig.
I feel once again.
And then kind of just, I think we were mostly all a bunch of Scottish jigs, and with Kenny Gillies porting along, and then
Did you do Riverbend, or did I imagine that?
I don't think I did.
No?
No.
Okay, I mixed up the names.
I can't remember that last one, the name of that one.
Skylight?
No, it wasn't that one.
No.
Wicked Jigs.
Blue Bonnets.
Wasn't that
No? Oh, Christ. Never mind. I'm just going to shut my mouth. Like,
Let's keep going. You're playing MSR&D.
oh, that's the final thing. So I'm talking to myself. No, Mom, we don't have.
I was going to look at the paper, but I didn't make it to the paper. All right. So we're going
This is you? Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. What are you doing? Yeah. I'm not really there anymore. I'm on the hook. We'll have to go see.
I changed them back.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You're good.
Wasn't that great? Give another hand for Cameron, McNeel, and Andrea, and Derrick too. That was awesome. We have any visitors here? We have quite a bit of people here. Yeah, where's everyone from? Everywhere. I bet there's everywhere. Any? Tennessee?
Iowa.
Iowa. California. Wow. Where is it? Chicago. Wow. All the states. That's awesome. Raise your hand if you're from the states. Oh wow. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. It's great to see you. And you're here at a good time. The weather's nice, and the summer's just starting for music, especially. Kitchen Fest will be June 27th to July 5th, and everyone that's performing today is part of Kitchen Fest somewhere on the island, and there's going to be lots of pub nights, Ceilidh's, square dances, the Big Bash will be at the Gaelic College, lots of stuff going on. So there's brochures floating around. You can see the full schedule. And there's lots going on, so it'll be lots of music this summer. So I'll start by playing a nice Maddie Rankin tune. She's part of Beolach, called, I think it's Lament for John Morris. Do you know that tune?
Yes.
Okay, nice. Yeah, it's an E. And then I'll just go in E. Yeah. And then I'll just go into some E jigs, Morrison jig.
E major.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
And then I think there's one called the Clay Pipe, if I'm not mistaken. And then Ingenish jig. So we'll try that. up and give some steps. She's a great step dancer. And yeah, you what's the dates for your step dancing school?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
My dance school in Malibu.
Mhm.
I'm going to be at Beaton.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Nice.
And it's on July 21st to the 25th of July.
July 21st to 25th of July. Cool.
And you can just look up kbrettonstepdance.com. You can register there.
Nice. All right, so heard that. kbrettonstepdance.com. Yeah, great step dancing.
Let me know when.
I'll start with,
Just a smidge.
Yeah.
I was going to play Beaton's Delight, but Melanie Cameron did an awesome job of it. But speaking of that, I'll play King George instead, something classic. But yeah, what's going on? How's
We open Sunday.
Nice.
We're open again this Sunday.
Nice.
And then we'll be, once Kitchen Fest and everything, Malibu Paley starts.
Yeah.
I've been saying open by chance, because it's just me this year working, so I'll be between gigs and Beaton's Delight and Airbnb and whatever.
Yeah, you'll be busy, yeah.
Something's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So coffee and
That's for sure.
coffee and sweets, right? You got some
And soft serve
And soft
serve
serve.
treats.
Nice. And it's like right next to the Red Shoe, right? Red Shoe Pub, yeah. So yeah, you can check those things out. It's great stuff. So yeah, I'll just play some classic stuff. I'll start with King George and then Melody will tell me when to cut off the reels.
I won't be long, I
Well, I'm just gonna move the camera. Yeah.
He is multitasking.
Great
worker.
Ryan.
Cool. If you want to even just step even, yeah, that's great.
Is this in the way? Should that be pulled in a little?
You could probably pull this just so it
There we go.
cool.
What's that?
Those dancers always need so much room.
I know, I can't help it.
Great stuff. I might play a waltz. And then we'll get maybe Melanie back up here for another fiddle stand. You want to do that? And then we'll do a finale after that? Yeah? All right, I'll play. This one's called Tennessee Waltz. It's
Oh, yeah.
one of my grandmother's favorite tunes, and just a lot of good stuff. And then Was it?
What key do you think?
Melanie back up here for some more tunes. Get a hand for her. Yeah.
Hi, Melanie. Hello, Andrea. This is fun.
What's the name of that tune?
Idle Jake.
The Isle Jig. Yeah. Yeah, you recorded that. Yeah. I
Did
think.
I? Oh.
I think that's where I learned it. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's a nice tune.
I probably did. It's from that era when
Yeah.
I first started playing.
Mm-hmm.
How many albums, Andrea?
Yes, how many albums did you make? Like of my own? Maybe?
Yeah.
I think it's 6.
Six?
And I have one with Troy and one with my dad and one with Derrick and a few other have about 7,000 CDs in my basement between mine and mom and dad's. So, and tapes. Does anyone have a cassette player? I'll give you a tape. My mom was like, "How look at the dumpster?" I said, "I can't."
I know, they're your babies.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
What are we doing?
I'm going to E minor.
That's a good idea. Is that what you're gonna do?
Or we might, if you want to just like get out there, that's what you're feeling.
Yes, I will.
And like start with the fiddle.
Yes, the musical movement, right? Cameron and Ben are gonna do something together. I'm gonna get them dance. Okay.
Yeah, but you can join us on the fiddle too. Like we're just playing very calm.
We're so used to playing together. Just that,
Yeah, I remember the shit.
Yeah.
I will. I'll hang out.
Hang out with me.
I'll hang around the spot.
You're recording.
Oh yeah.
That's, no, you're right.
Yeah, no, I'm like,
Going up the step.
Yeah. You're gonna go there, I guess. You need the
Yeah.
mic. You're gonna put the mic on that little bit? Oh, yeah.
I'll just hang out. I'll hang out.
okay.
And I'll put my fiddle down.
Okay.
Yeah. He should go where you are. And you should go here so that he can put the mic on the mic.
Sure. Yeah.
He's got the small mic.
Yeah, true, true.
And then he's blowing at me. I mean, there's more space back here, is what I meant, but anyway. Oh, I get it. No.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out tonight. We're gonna play a few tunes, so we still got a few more minutes left. So we're gonna drag out the finale a bit. We'll play a blast of stuff. But yeah, big thanks to Barbie McRae for all the wonderful oat cakes and the drinks and the helping us out. And big thanks to Michael Cavanaugh on the sound, making everyone sound good. Yeah. And yeah, there's going to be lots going on this summer at the Gaelic College. We'll be back same time, same place next week if you're in the area. And if you're a lot of people are from away, so if you check out the Gaelic College Facebook page, they stream the Ceilidhs every week, Wednesday at 7:30. So wherever you are in the world, you can tune in online for free. And also it's really appreciated to anyone who donates. Maybe Ryan can put a link in the. Ryan's away, but he's online, so maybe you can put a link in the. Hey Ryan, maybe you can put a link in the description or the comment section. But it's really appreciated. It's a non-profit institution, and it does a lot for the culture here in the island, and lots of great things happening at the Gaelic College. So thanks again, and maybe we'll see you around sometime. But thanks.